Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage Brew. Take a look at games, preview and review the ones that we can, which lies to be will be later this week. Also talk about the gaming news in the industry, which we'll be doing tonight, and then of course stream for fun. So, we'll be talking about gaming news, and we got kind of a long one. I'm going to try to go through it as quickly and efficiently as I can, but there's quite a bit to cover. Everything from finally some finalized news on Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal. We got some confirmed games. We got also some cancellations. We have to talk about layoffs some. We often have to talk about some big news from Sony. And also a remake that doesn't look like it's going to come to fruition. So let's go ahead and get chatting about this. Hopefully you guys are doing well. I know for my wife and I, certainly things have been stressful. You know, we got 2 young kids and stuff, but just want to encourage you to hang in there. You know, even financially, my wife and I were starting to struggle a little bit, but honestly, that's okay. We're going to make a little bit of cutbacks and we're just going to ride this out. And honestly, you still have some time to get your finances in order. So take the time to do that. Prepare for the fugly future that honestly I think is coming next year, economically speaking. And do some preparation. And it's good to take some pain now over a longer period of time than a whole bunch of pain all at once. So, please do that. If you have some debts to pay off, if you need to cut a little bit, if you don't have much of a buffer or anything, financially speaking, like an emergency fund, work on taking care of those things. All right, let's go ahead and get on to the news. So let's see, Criterion is going to be working on Battlefield, which I thought was going to be interesting. They were the ones that worked on the Burnout Paradise series, or like the Burnout series. So we got like multiple Burnouts, and then we got Burnout Paradise, which was really good. And then we haven't seen really much of anything Burnout related in quite some time. And now they're going to be working on Battlefield. So I thought that was kind of weird. It's like here they've been working on making a game that's really focused on like cars and jumps and kind of like an arcadey type of mode. And then now it's going to be like they're going to be working on Battlefield. And it's like, does Battlefield need help at this point? Honestly, I think they do after Battlefield 2042. Battlefield 5 wasn't as good as number 1. Number 1 was really flipping good. I still love going back to that game and playing it. If you're up some time, hit me up. But like Battlefield 2042 wasn't just a bad game, it was just a lack of game. So we didn't have any campaign. They had a story, but you had to learn about that through the little cutscene in the beginning. The music is really bad. You started with almost no guns, no gear. The class system was a joke. They didn't even really have a class system, actually, to begin with. I was so frustrated and pissed off with just the state of Battlefield 2042. And I did go back, months later and play it again, and it was a little improved, which was good, but also the maps sucked. They still suck. Like, I would rather play COD maps than play, which honestly, the newer maps on Modern Warfare 2 are pretty good. And, good grief, man, Battlefield is just like, ugh, it just makes me want to puke. I mean, 2042 has just left such a bad taste in my mouth. And, they are still technically improving it over time, and some players are kind of going back and playing it. But now we're going to have a developer that's used to making racing games that are going to help with a first-person shooter. Talk about a whole different dynamic. There's not a ton of details on this, but yeah, I just thought that was interesting. Personally, I don't think that's going to help Battlefield. Also, we know that Ubisoft is going to be working on Division 3. So we know there's like Division the Heartland, but this is supposedly a separate division. This is going to be Division number 3, and the Heartland is like their live service aspect. Yeah, Division 3 is supposed to be a kind of a very much the same like Division 1 and 2, which those were okay. Those were very much looter shooters, third-person looter shooters. But the issue with those is that the enemies become very, very spongy, and it's not very fun just trying to like do the big bosses or the big raids, or in some of the big DLCs, where you're just constantly shooting at some bosses for like 10-15 minutes, trying to kill them. If you could see like an armored enemy, like Armored Core or something, yeah, that would make a little more sense, maybe, but where your enemy can just take hit after hit after hit after hit after hit of just these, massive, like, 7.62 bullets, or 50 cal. mean, for Pete's sakes, it gets a little ridiculous. And so, I don't know. I don't know if Ubisoft is really going to be making a very good Division 3. They've already had plenty of other projects and games that haven't really done very well, and we know too a lot of their franchise they had and IPs they have made so far, they're scrapping. And this is really frustrating because they got some really good ones, or they have some potential to kind of grow some really good ones. But yeah, they're just like, nah, we're hemorrhaging money. We really need to make some money. And I talked about that in one of the previous gaming news. Is just economically as a company looking at their balance sheet and their debt to earnings ratio and all this stuff, is like, yeah, they're really not a good company to invest in because they're just not making money as a company. But yeah, they do have Division 3 coming, so we'll have to see how that goes. It is also confirmed that we're going to have a Star Wars. Wow, I'm tired, folks. Give me a break. Star Wars Jedi number 3. So we had Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor, and hey, Survivor did pretty well. It was a pretty well received game. The port for PC was fairly bad. There are also some issues on Xbox. PlayStation seemed to have the smoothest type of gameplay for folks. But yeah, we're going to be getting a number 3, which will be great. It'll be the same actor. But yeah, there's no announcements for a release date yet. So I'm sure we'll be hearing about that later next year when we have all of those showcases again, which, hey, you can tune into the channel because I'll be covering most of those as I waste my life, watching DoorDash ads and ads for a, PC monitor. Oh, those showcases were horrible. So this is a bigger one. Microsoft and Activision Blizzard, the deal is going to be finalized. So they have until October 18th to get the deal finished. Otherwise, they gotta pay more money to Activision Blizzard. That's in the terms of the agreement that they've signed. And so Microsoft is really trying to get this done, but the CMA in the UK has finally approved the deal. And so here's some of the changes. So Microsoft and Activision Blizzard are selling their streaming rights to Ubisoft. So we did mention that before in a previous gaming news. So there can't be any exclusive releases on Xbox's cloud gaming services, including Game Pass. They have to be ran through Ubisoft. They have to be approved by Ubisoft. They also can't have any exclusives or exclusive terms on rival services. So they can't do what PlayStation has been doing with some of their games. Just hey, we're going to pay you to make this an exclusive, or hey, we're going to, this is how you're going to do the terms, or this is what the license is going to be if you're going to have our games and services on your platform or your service. So they're not going to be able to do that. Again, this is only related with streaming. This isn't going to be related with their actual client or on Xbox. This is just going to be on their cloud gaming services. We did get to see a remark from Phil Spencer explaining that by 2027, if they can't really get a good foothold with Game Pass and some other aspects outside of their just original Xbox client, then Xbox is going to get out of that gaming aspect of service. And so right now they have a cloud gaming, and then they also have a focus on PC. Well, if there's not enough growth by 2027, they're just going to be done with it, and they'll just solely focus on Xbox again. And so a lot of people have taken that out of context, but I just wanted to clear that up real quick. Clear as mud, folks. So yeah, this exclusivity streaming rights, this will include stuff on PC and console and any new games released by Activision Blizzard in the next 15 years. So 15 years, that's, let me try to do math, 2038. That's a long flippin' time. A lot of stuff can change between now and then. So Ubisoft ultimately is going to provide or allow the licensing for games to be on the cloud and for cloud gaming to take place with Activision Blizzard games. The goal is to, again, close the deal by October 18th. Eventually, all new Activision Blizzard games will go on Game Pass, including some of the older ones. And so this is going to be great. And this is what I think is really going to potentially really boost Game Pass's value as it is right now. Right now, on this channel, we're doing something called Off the Cuff, where we're taking a look at a long-term 14-month period of Game Pass Ultimate, if it's really worth it or not. And so we might be able to see some of the change here with Activision Blizzard being bought and purchased, and some of these games actually coming to Game Pass. And then we'll have a finalized, thought process on if Game Pass is worth it or not. Next year, toward the end of next year. So go ahead and stay tuned for that. If you do want to watch Off the Cuff, I got a playlist for that, and you're welcome to see that. That's at YouTube at Gaming Garbage 22. Yeah, that'll be interesting. So this is probably why, too, Activision also started their old servers and started matchmaking again for some of the older Call of Duty titles, like World at War and the Black Ops games. And honestly, I think that's a wonderful idea. A lot of people really like the older stuff. A lot of people are playing the older stuff. A lot of the new games that are coming out, not just for Activision Blizzard, but just across the board, are just really not that great. We still have some good ones here and there, but there's really not a ton of good ones. And so people are enjoying the older stuff, and I think, yeah, this is going to draw in some people to Game Pass because they're going to be able to have some of these Activision Blizzard games. And this isn't just COD. This is going to be this is going to be basically everything that Activision Blizzard will make from here on out, and then including a lot of the old COD games and other games that they've also made as a studio. And so you think back, and it's like, wow, there's a lot of stuff that Activision Blizzard has made and had their hands in. And remember, this acquisition is $69 billion, but if it goes past October 18th, then that goes up to about $75 billion. So yeah, and plus all of the court stuff that they had to deal with over the last year with fighting the FTC and Sony. And for Pete's sakes, yeah, they're spending Microsoft is spending a lot of money for this deal. Side note, Sony will be guaranteed Call of Duty after this deal for 10 years, but no other IPs. And that's all they're getting. So, yeah, that'll be quite interesting. In other news, Evil Dead is basically going to be canceled on anything else. And so this will be, Evil Dead will be a Epic Store only. And supposedly, they've gotten their... they got some Epic money to go on Epic Store, and so they're going to be, the game is basically going to stay right there. There was also a focus to maybe even bring it to Twitch, and that's been yanked off the table now. So Evil Dead is only going to be on the Epic Store, and so that'll stink. And Saber really isn't going to focus too much on any other updates or DLCs from this point, except for maybe what they have planned. And even some of those, I think, are also scrapped from the sounds of it. And so, yeah, this is kind of a bummer, and I think this is one of the issues with having your game become a part of a service, is that once you get your money for getting your game on the service, because you do get paid, and you do get to kind of negotiate on what that price tag is. Like Baldur's Gate 3 could have been on Game Pass for $5 million. Which is actually quite cheap, as some of these other games are like 20 million or 30 million. And for just a measly $5 million, boy, that having Baldur's Gate 3 on Game Pass would have been amazing. Yeah, that's something they definitely learned and realize now, don't they? Whoops. Good job, Microsoft. Yeah, it's gonna be a bummer. The Evil Dead is only gonna be stuck on the Epic Store. Also, we found out, I did reiterate this, I think, on the last gaming news, but I just want to make sure to get this in here, is that Diablo 4 has lost about 90% of its player base. And it's continuing to fall. Content creators are also walking away, and the game itself is in serious trouble. Now, I was talking to somebody about this, is that Blizzard has made the last 2 years basically Overwatch 2 and Diablo, and the focus for the rest of this year has been making seasons and DLC for those two games. And Overwatch 2 is dead. I don't think it could be any more dead than it is. And you also can't play Overwatch 1. So Overwatch is just, it's over. And then you got Diablo, and a lot of people are going back to Diablo 3, including the content creators. Some are even going back to Diablo 2, in whatever aspects that they can. And there's more people watching Diablo 3 than Diablo 4. Diablo 4 on Twitch has like barely even 1,000 people watching at any given time. Most of the time they're just in the hundreds. Like, content creators, viewership, player base, all of it is done. And they haven't even made it to their second season yet, folks. This game literally came out in June. And I mean, the game's already dead. Yeah. I mean, literally in 3 months it's done. And this was supposed to be a AAA game. Why do AAA games suck? If you're really curious, I actually break that down in the State of Gaming Cogs of Live Service. You can take a look at that on my channel. That was just released yesterday. And that's just breaking down mechanically and the psychology of how companies are seeing and implementing and executing live service and how they're pulling you in. So it's about 30 minutes. Go ahead and take a look at that if you're interested. So yeah, with Diablo 4, I'm just kind of curious, if their games suck that bad, are some companies going to get to a point where they're actually going to shut down the servers of their previous games as the new one launches? Because if let's say you've shoved tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars into making a certain game, wouldn't you want to ensure a success, or that people kind of port over to that? And if there's already been a trend that if people don't like your current new game, they'll just go back to your old one, wouldn't you be incentivized to shut your old one down? I don't know, it's kind of an interesting thought that I had. Because it's truly getting quite frustrating with just so many of these games just getting screwed. And we're going to talk about that a little bit too when we get to layoffs. We're getting there. Also, in other news, NFTs are basically now worthless. I absolutely love that. I'm so excited to hear that. So there's a report done that looked at tens of thousands of different NFT portfolios that were either managed or owned by billionaires or companies or whatever. These were investment portfolios, and basically these are worthless. And we're talking literal zeros. Like, these portfolios are nothing. And I love that. I love that. Even my, Bitcoin, Ethereum thing is worth more than NFTs. That's hilarious. It still lost like half of its value, which is a lot. Like, I lost a couple $100, playing around with that stuff with cryptocurrencies. But NFTs are absolute trash. Like, you don't even, they're not even anything. And I've had some chats too about NFTs. I think they're on the channel. I got into NFTs pretty heavy, but I can't remember if I had started my YouTube channel yet. They might have only been on Twitch. But hey, you can take a look, see if there's any. Yeah, I know there's some NFT stuff about Madden, but that didn't come to fruition. Thank goodness. Hopefully it never does, but maybe EA will actually do that with their football club, which, gosh dang it, I should have looked that up. Yeah, NFTs are just an absolute joke, but they're still not gone, which sucks. And so Ubisoft is still having a new type of NFT, a new blockchain. They got rid of Quartz, and now they're, making something else. Epic Games is still going to be making plenty of NFTs. We also know that Sony has gotten a patent for like a type of exchange hub for NFTs, where you can be able to incorporate multiple games and be able to exchange items between different games using this type of infrastructure hub to do that. But again, it's all around blockchain and NFT type of stuff. And then even Dr. Disrespect has his own game where basically you pay to earn, pay to win kind of NFTs and stuff. And it's just like, man, come on. Like, this honestly needs to be done. I mean, even Logan Paul isn't even trying to scam people with NFTs anymore. Like, it's time to be done with this. So some Sony news. Man, this one is really bad. Uh, Sony has hidden the KOTOR remake announcement trailer. Now, we first heard this in 21, and we've heard some issues with with the studio Aspire working on the remake, and through 21 and also through 22. But yeah, now as of literally like this week, um, it's been noted that Sony has now removed the announcement trailer. So again, there has been issues between corporate heads and developers not seeing eye to eye on stuff. There's also been an issue with the budget. Um, the Aspire also now has had help from Saber Entertainment that was supposed to help with development and get things on track. But the design and arts director are now fired. Like, they're gone. And all of the marketing material has been pulled for Knights of the Old Republic remake. And yeah, this really is not looking good. So, and there's no announcement from Sony. There's nothing really from Aspire. There's nothing from Saber. Yeah, what the frick is going on? So, none of this really sounds good, folks. So, are we going to get one? I don't know. And this is frustrating, too, because there was a group actually working on making their own kind of like Knights of the Old Republic remake or remaster. And, they were shut down. And they were pretty close to being done. And now it's like, yay, we're going to get one. And now it's like, is the project dead? Like, honestly, we just want good games to be remastered. We fell in love with stuff as a kid, right? Most of us did. A lot of us did. And it's also a new way to kind of rebirth some of the older games and bring them back into the fold and have them compete with some of these live service ones. And I think that's great because we actually get some wholesome games, some good entertainment. But yeah, this one might be actually done, folks. Hopefully it's not. We'll have to see. Also, in other news, maybe some better news, probably for most of us, Sony's Jim Ryan is stepping down. So he got pretty slaughtered with the whole Microsoft Activision Blizzard thing, talking about Microsoft, should not be able to buy Activision Blizzard. It's too big of a staple of gaming, especially with Call of Duty, but none of that really held any water. Again, the only thing that was really holding back the deal was the CMA in the UK, but they didn't focus on the fact that, the IPs that Activision Blizzard had, it was more about the cloud gaming service. And so now that that's been resolved, this deal is going to go through, and we just learned about that pretty much a week or two ago. And now we hear that Jim Ryan is actually stepping down. So I find both of those very closely correlated in time, and they're probably linked. Ryan has also spent almost 30 years with the company since the start of PlayStation 1, which is pretty incredible. That was launched in 95. And he says the biggest reason why he's leaving, or retiring rather, is that because he works in the US and lives in Europe. So if anyone has ever dealt with time differences before, oh boy, is it such a pain. The shortest time difference is 5 hours if you live over in Portugal and over to the East Coast. But holy smokes, I mean, if you're in like Germany or you're over in like Turkey or something, oh dude, yeah, no, it can be a bunch of hours in between, and that can really make things quite frustrating. So yeah, that's why I'm not doing long distance relationships anymore. Nope, I tried that. Tried that a couple times, and nope, and especially with one, it was very serious, and man, I was like, nope, never again. And I'm so glad I did that because I found my wife. So yeah, he says that's the biggest reason, but there's also a lot of other things that have happened too. So again, the Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal, that was a big stain on his resume. He also had the price increase for PlayStation Plus without really improving anything about the services, which is trash. Also focusing on a ton of different accessories for the PlayStation 5. So we got everything from the VR headset, which did very, very poorly. They only had, at launch, 10% of their sales compared to what they were expecting. They also had the focus of like the Portal, which is the handheld, which isn't even Bluetooth. You have to buy special earbuds, basically, to be able to actually have good quality. You can only go so far. You have to be hooked up basically through your Wi-Fi to your PlayStation, and basically you just kind of like stream games to it. But it's not like a portable like with the Switch. I mean, it's just a waste of money and time. And then there's other accessories too that they've really pushed. And it's just like everything that they've focused on with the PlayStation 5 really hasn't gone anywhere. The PlayStation 5, even though this isn't as well known, has also had some issues with their heatsink. And so they've reduced their heatsink twice. They've had 3 different heatsinks. And each time there's a reiteration or a new model with PlayStation 5, they've been making the heatsink smaller. And I honestly think this is what was causing some of the issues with Final Fantasy 16 players. They said during a certain cutscene with the boss, the game console would just freak out, shut down, maybe give a message, hey, too hot, I'm shutting down, as an emergency. And some people could not really get through that part of the game. So hopefully you have a huge walk-in freezer so that you can actually play your game. But in my opinion, that was with the reduced heatsink. And so yeah, PlayStation just had a lot of issues. Jim Ryan took over in like 2018, 2019, and basically walked through the launch of PlayStation 5 through like the pandemic and all of the issues with working and restrictions and everything and shutdowns and just issues too with the supply chains. And oh my word, that is quite an accomplishment. But still, all of these other things, it's just like, man, what are you doing? And even too, we've seen that there's also a focus on live service games, and even killing some of the IPs like Gran Turismo. The last one they did, it launched great, and then they had an update within a month, which made everything a lot more expensive, a lot more grindy. You earned less in racing, and good grief. I mean, it just totally changed the game. It didn't make it fun anymore. It was all about the grind and just getting you to just spend money for these microtransactions. And who honestly wants to do that? And so yeah, it's killed Gran Turismo in my opinion. And then too, they're focusing on making a Gran Turismo movie. Saying gamers can be race car drivers. No, they can't. It's totally different. You actually got to go to college, not be in college, but you actually got to go to college to actually race cars. There's a whole school for it. It's not like going to college and being good at putting a ball in a hoop. You actually got to get a degree in this stuff. And so, yeah, I'm sure the movie too didn't do very good. And there's just been a lot of things that are on Jim Ryan's report card. And yeah, maybe he's just kind of done. Maybe he's just ready to retire and just not give a rip anymore. And he was seen too as more of a suit and didn't care about the gaming aspect. He was just all business all the time. And so this makes me wonder too, who are we really going to get? Who's going to be the next guy? Hopefully it's going to be somebody that's going to be worth it, more invested, and have better decision making for the consumer base, and actually contribute wonderful stuff to the gaming industry. I wonder too if Sony actually pushed him out. It's like bad PR after bad PR, and it's like, hey, we just need to get someone else in here. We're going to be working toward releasing a new console in like 27, 28, and that's pretty soon, and maybe we just need somebody else to head that up. I kind of really wonder if that was part of it too. What do you guys think? Leave a comment below. Lastly, man, we got to talk about layoffs. We're still not done. So in 2022, we had a lot of layoffs. Even at the beginning of 23, we had a lot of layoffs, but they're still happening. So Epic Games is going to lay off 16%. Also reported last gaming news that BioWare laid off about 20% of their people. And that's probably going to affect Dreadwolf. And Epic Games makes Fortnite. This has been a huge flippin' cash cow for them, if you didn't know. We know, too, that Unity will likely have future layoffs also pretty soon, and also far into the future, as their new business model basically shot them in the foot with trying to get devs to pay for freaking game installs. Like, per game install, pay us a royalty. Like, are you kidding? Are you kidding? You already pay to use the service. You already pay licensing deals and from these devs, and now you want them to just pay you royalties for when their game gets installed. That's so stupid. Luckily, Unity has walked, most of that back, but there still is a plan for royalty payments on game installs. And yeah, I think the damage is already done. So I really think that Unity is going to see a huge decrease in here. And it also shows that the insiders knew that too in Unity. So Unity is a publicly traded company. And we got to see that CEOs and CFOs and other parts of upper management, they sold a bunch of their shares before and right after the announcement of this new business model. And so, yeah, even people inside the company knew it's just like, yeah, people aren't going to like this. Investors aren't going to like this. So, hey, let's sell toward the top as much as we can and actually cash in some of that money. And yeah, sure enough, the stock hasn't been very pretty. We've also had multiple studios shut down. So the ones that made like Saints Row and Forspoken, they're done. And then we've also had continued layoffs at Microsoft and Meta. They're not reported in the news, but they're still happening. And so, yeah, that's affecting the gaming space and gaming industry too, to an extent. We also have Creative Assembly is having multiple games canceled, including Hyenas, which, I mean, nobody really asked for that game anyway. That's a looter shooter with Sega. But good grief, they're having multiple layoffs across multiple dev teams. And they didn't really tell people about this. They just kind of told them, hey, you don't have a job anymore. And how horrible is that, right? I mean, you're getting close to Thanksgiving. Hey, what are you thankful for? Oh, I guess I'm alive. That's good. I can't support my family anymore, but yeah, I'm looking for a job. Here's hoping. And yeah, there's just already been a lot of layoffs in the gaming industry already. There was a whole bunch of money that was spent during COVID and a lot of extra cash floating around. And so when you feel like you have a lot of extra money, you spend it. And so there was a lot of devs and a lot of games that got a lot of money. We even saw some of the values of some of these public companies double over the course of COVID. Which 100% increase in stock value, that's pretty impressive. We even saw some companies quadruple in stock price because of all of this extra money floating around out there, and just the revenues they were pulling in was just crazy. And some of the revenues that are roughly about 40% in some cases of what they were just a couple of years ago. And 2021 was a huge freaking time to be spending money on video games. And with all that stimulus checks and everything. And yeah, people were spending it. And now it's just like, hey, they've grown these companies expecting the same amount of revenues and things like that. And now it's just like, well, that's not happening. And, well, we got to let you go. And so this is, this is really sad. And it always seems to happen too around the fall and winter. For any industry, really. Is that this is when a lot of layoffs happen, and I'm sure we're going to see more layoffs next year. But we also know that Crystal Dynamics is having some layoffs, and we also know that Gearbox is having issues too. And so they've already had some layoffs, I think, earlier this year. They own Borderlands, or they've worked on Borderlands, I should say it that way. But Gearbox is also maybe looking to go independent, which I think would be great. I think there's more competition, and more competition is good. And then also, they could be looking to for Gearbox to be sold from Embracer Group to be given to somebody else. So, come on, Microsoft, buy them up, buy up Borderlands, get them on your game service. That would be great. We also see too that there's a voice actor strike, so this also affects the gaming community. And if the voice actor strike actually happens, well, you're not going to have your voice actors. You're not going to be able to finish and publish your games. And this is just going to apply more pressure to publishers and to devs and studios, as they're still having overhead, still having to pay their employees, still keep the lights on. But maybe they got to pause for a month or maybe 6 months, depending on how things go, with making actual revenue. And again, if you don't make revenue as a company, you lay people off, and if you continue to not make enough, well, eventually just close as a business. You're done. And you lay everybody off. So, yeah. So, I mean, that voice actor strike should just be more gasoline on the fire. We'll have to see what happens with that. I think that was the last bit that I had. Make sure I covered everything. I did. Wow, I actually tore through that, I think, pretty quick. I think it's one of the fastest ones I've had. So if you enjoy the channel, folks, thank you for being here, for showing up, for watching the channel, providing feedback, leaving comments, all that jazz, and voting, too, for off-the-cuff stuff. I appreciate that very much. I enjoy doing this channel. And if you want to follow me on Twitch, you can always find me over at Don't Tread on Thee. And then also, if you want to see everything that I archive on YouTube, I'm at Gaming Garbage 22, and we archive everything with co-op stuff to single-player stuff, like I'm going through Starfield right now. We also do reviews, like I'm going to be doing one of Starfield. I'm going to do an initial look of Liza P. We did kind of not really, but kind of an initial look at Payday 3. And then I also do gaming news. We also have Off the Cuff, which takes a look at Game Pass long-term to really see if it's worth it. And then we also have something here at the channel called the State of Gaming. And this is just to kind of talk about the gaming space, to talk about the changes, and to talk about whether if they're good or not, and kind of where, too, the gaming space is headed. And some of that is just hypothesized. But yeah, I really enjoy doing this channel. And if you could do me a favor, it's really not just following me or subscribing or whatever they call it now. It's really just sharing it with other people. If you know of others that would enjoy the channel, please share it. Get the word out there. Again, this is not monetized. It will not be monetized. I don't want money to get in the way of me making my content that I care about. And so, yeah, it's going to continue to be ad-free. And really, this is just a channel to partly entertain you guys, also just get the word out there about what's going on in the gaming industry. This is the hobby I care most about, is gaming. I've been gaming for, it feels like forever. And but too, this is also to invest in you guys, to give some pieces of advice when they show up. My wife and I were even going through It Takes Two, and we talk about our marriage and give marital advice. We're not licensed or anything, but we care. And some of the others on the show, on the channel, like Lion and Shepherd, they care too. We care about the gaming space, and we just want to keep you up to date. And here you guys can rest here at the channel. And, I don't think things are going to get easier, economically speaking, as I already mentioned, with all the layoffs we're already having in the gaming industry. But there's a lot of layoffs, too, happening all over the place. Stores shutting down, businesses changing, industries shifting. And there's just really a lack of money, and it's nice to have a place to feel like you can just hang out for a while. And that's Gaming Garbage. So I hope you'll join me, and spread the word to others. And, boy, hang in there. Make sure to take rest for yourself. I know it's Monday, but hey, we all work for a reason, don't we? Just remember what that reason is, and I'll see you on the next one.